County Down man will take over from Ryan Tubridy as the iconic show enters its 61st season in September. Describing the Late Late Gig as one of the greatest jobs in television, he said he's genuinely humbled to become part of Friday nights for so many Irish people. It's 2:02.
News Talk weather.
Thanks to Ryanair. See the Rugby World Cup live in France with Ryanair's low-fare flights to Paris, Bordeaux and Marseille.
Patchy light rain or drizzle turning more persistent this afternoon and evening with highs of 15 to 18 degrees. Now you're up to date on News Talk.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky, don't miss Newcastle versus Leicester on Monday Night Football. Live only on Sky Sports.
This is News Talk.
Hello and welcome back to Off the Ball. It's Kathleen McNamee here, taking over from John Duggan for a little bit while he hot tails over to the Aviva for Leinster versus La Rochelle. There's live commentary coming up later on, but for now I am joined by Dan McDonnell and Damien Delaney on the line to take you through all the football action this afternoon. Tottenham and Brentford is on at the moment, about 72 minutes gone there, and Tottenham, after taking the lead through Harry Kane, are 2-1 down, so things not going too well there. A brace for Brentford's Mbumu. Dan, how are things with you?
Good, Kathleen.
You were at the League of Ireland last night?
I was up in Dundalk last night, yeah. I was probably in the wrong game. It's always the way it goes. There was a lot of different games to do last night, and I went there. I think Shell's Pats was on TV. I don't think that was any good. I think that was a poor enough game. But yeah, Drogheda winning and Shamrock Rovers ended up being the game to be at, which no one expected to be that good, but it was. And that was a great story for Drogheda, and delighted for them and their manager Kevin Doherty, because their budget is tiny. They should not be winning in Tala, but they did. And two great goals. People might have seen them online. Two terrific team goals. So the Dundalk Bows was good, like 2-2, a bit of drama, but maybe not the big talking point of the night.
Yeah, I was watching, I think it was you that tweeted out, said Drogheda's second goal, and it was such a lovely team goal. I think there was about 9 individual touches before it got, and of all the players that touched the ball, I think only 2 of them touched it twice. Everything else was single touch. Yeah,
it was one touch, and it was like, I would have made the point that, this is the thing. It's no surprise. Like, Shells a couple of weeks back scored a brilliant goal in Tala, and it's like, it's revolutionary stuff here. If you have a good playing surface, where teams can fizz the ball around a bit, they do good things. And the point I would say is, there's that Drogheda team goal last night. There are several pitches in the country where you just couldn't do that because the surface wouldn't allow you to do it. And there's a lot of chat this week. We had Damien Duff out the other day. We always seem to be having these soul-searching state of the nation debates in football in Ireland on a weekly basis, and one of the most obvious things is facilities. The product looks better, everything looks better, and teams can also play better on it, which is, Damo was there on the line. There's obviously quite a contrast between playing on a pitch where you can't control the ball properly and a pitch where you can, and one definitely showcases the league in a much better light than the other.
I was going to ask you, Damien, is there any particular pitches over the course of your career that you played on and you could just feel it making your football better?
I quite like the bobbly ones, really. It was a good leveller, Dan.
Yeah. I can't believe we're going to mention Daly Main Park again, Damo. We're only on a minute.
Jesus. I quite like the slippery ones. No, but I agree, Dan. Playing surfaces are important. I don't know if Dan got a chance to see the Cork City goal last night as well.
Yeah, I did.
Which was a similar ish type move, maybe not as lengthy, but there was some fabulous football played by Cork, and a lovely through ball for Keating to score what turned out to be the winner. But some of the football on display at Turner's Cross yesterday was epic. But I suppose we're at that time of year now where the temperatures are up, grass is growing. There's obviously still enough rain around to keep the pitches lush. The key is obviously, as the summer drives on and pitches get dried out, they will get a little bit damaged, and that's when you can find the bobbles, and they can be a little bit difficult playing surfaces. So that is a challenge, is to maintain that. But I just think that the month of May in Ireland, April, May, is always the perfect grass growing weather. That's why the pitches always look so good right now. But I suppose when the sun comes out in full force and they dry out, that will be the challenge.
Yeah, you'd only miss Johnny to talk about the climate change now, but you have I would mention that through ball from Cork last night. Joe O'Brien Whitmarsh, he's an 18-year-old fellow who put the through ball. He's a player as well. We'll be hearing more about him, I think, in the coming years. But yeah.
Well, it was a good performance from Cork last night to get that win against Sligo Rovers, who are on a pretty downward turn at the moment. Like 3 games, no wins, no points. What's gone wrong for them?
I don't really know, to be honest, because I've the couple of times I've seen them this season, they've been pretty good. And like they went to Tala a couple of weeks ago and probably should have beaten Shamrock Rovers. The stats, stats obviously can be very misleading, but like, goal attempts and stuff like that was very high. And yeah, they've lost every game since, so it's very hard to know. I don't think they've kept a clean sheet this season, which is a problem. And if your team is low on confidence, needing a result, and you're playing catch up in games all the time, maybe that's an issue. But yeah, that's the thing. It's a funny one. Like Derry are back on top now, when they were completely dominated by Shamrock Rovers 2 weeks ago in the Brandywell, and you think, God, this season's going to end up being another procession again, and it might end up being that way still. But Derry are starting to get a couple of their players back, and the top 2 are probably going to start pulling away, and a lot of those teams in the middle are very inconsistent, and there's not a huge amount between them, to be honest.
And Damien, what about Cork then? Because they're obviously second from bottom at the moment, but they are 6 points ahead of UCD, so there is a bit of a cushion there. An important win for them last night.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know Drogheda winning as well. A lot of people say, the one time we get a win, Drogheda go and win as well, we had a chance to close the gap. But, we're still at the stage of the season where we just need to focus on ourselves and kind of internalise all our energies and start moving ourselves in the right direction. But it was a good performance. And we said that a lot. Well, I said that a lot about Cork City this year. Some of the performances have been pretty good, and we've had leads in games, lots of games. Only last week, you think Dundalk, but we always seem to find a way to maybe give the lead away or to lose the game. And I think last night was significant that, even though the pressure was coming late on from Sligo, Cork City withstood it well and fully deserved the win. Liam Buckley's come in there in the last number of weeks and trying to instill a bit of confidence, a team that was low on confidence. But he's doing a great job. So things are starting to look up, but it's just about consistency for us.
You're not thinking of throwing any CVs in there, Damo, or anything? No, you wouldn't be.
I don't even have a CV, Dan, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I'm the most unqualified person now to walk into a changing room. So no, absolutely not. I'm happy going to the games on Friday night, watching it. And Liam Buckley, as I said, is doing a great job as we continue our search for a new manager.
When you are a team that's low on confidence in that, and you do get someone that comes in and I suppose lifts you in the way that Buckley has over the last couple of weeks, like what is it? Is it particular to a certain team what they need in that moment, or is there kind of a formula that tends to, even if it's just for a couple of weeks or a couple of matches, gets you through?
And sometimes it could just be a different voice. Sometimes you get used to losing and you get used to conceding goals in injury time, which we've done numerous occasions this year. And sometimes the manager gets down as well and gets stuck in a rut, really. And a different voice comes in, somebody who's kind of unaffected by the results before, and a bit of enthusiasm just seems to rub off on the players. And he's trying to change mindsets. You're trying to get players to think positively, that when you do go in front, that it's not panic stations, and then you end up snatching at the result and you panic and people make mistakes and red cards. I know we had one last night as well, but we managed to get it over the line with 10 men. So it's something that's just a different voice. Someone just comes in, like I said, and just G's the players up, and then you get a result. And that's why it was important last night that we got that result over the line. And that'll give players confidence now that if we are carrying leads into the last 5 minutes of a game, injury time, that you will kind of have okay, we've done this before, we know how to do it. Because when you are conceding goals in injury time, there is a dread that when the board goes up, you think, oh my God, this is when we concede. And it's just a mentality thing. But Liam's come in and he's done a superb job.
And we touched on it briefly, but kind of want to go into a bit more of that game for Drogheda last night, because it was a big win for them. I know you weren't at it, but you've seen a little bit from it. And I don't know, I've caught bits and bobs of their games over the last couple of weeks, and they always seem to perform well, but just not able to totally finish it out in the way that they showed. Was there much surprise, do you think, around the club that they were able to get a performance like that last night against Rovers? I
think there has to be surprise that they got the result in that game. But like they're look at stats again. I mean, but their stats, there's certain games where they're like, they've been dominant on all the metrics apart from the scoreboard, and they were heading into like a hell of a losing run they were building up. But games have all been pretty close. I think the important thing, like, to remember is that Drogheda are operating off a part-time budget, and I think that is probably going to be a thing of the past. I think for where the league's going in terms of the Premier Division, and the sometimes it can be overplayed by clubs. They do lots of training still, but still, if you look at Drogheda this season, I think they've lost all of their Monday games. That when, or certainly they haven't won any of them anyway. That when it comes to 3 games in a week, they just can't match up because they don't have the same sort of recovery, the same sort of access to the access to the players to be able to look after them in the way that other clubs can, and the depth of the squad, to the point where I think they only had one senior player on the bench last night and it was all kids. So in that context, I don't think this is the game where they would have expected them to get the result. But actually in the last year or two, they have a great record against Shamrock Rovers for whatever reason. They drew with them earlier in the season, could have beaten them. There was a late penalty that could have gone their way. Last season, they took points in Tala as well. So there's obviously something about it that they don't have a fear factor in that game against a very dominant team. Now, I think they had 21% possession last night, so there was a massive smash and grab element to it. But they're completely punching above their weight. They you're talking about there. You'd have Shamrock Rovers last night, who biggest budget in the country. Some very and rightly so. Very well played players and staff, and they wake up this morning with nothing on their mind but getting over last night's defeat or whatever. Kevin Doherty was delivering post this morning, and he's the Drogheda manager. So. It's a weird thing about the league here that we still have 2 teams in the same division living a completely different existence, a completely different lifestyle. As I said, I think we're hopefully getting to a place where that doesn't happen, and Drogheda probably need to get their act together in some ways and figure out what they're going to do, because there's been talk of investment and takeovers to make this happen, because what they're doing at the moment, it probably isn't sustainable over a longer period of time, because these players, the people involved, they're going to be picked away by other clubs. That's what happened to them last year. They've come again this year, but you can't keep doing that forever. And
how much interest do you think there is or isn't out there for the possible investors coming in to take over the club?
They've been in talks with people for the last while. I think there's obviously talk of Hull City and Shelbourne and that whole multi-club model. I think Hull might have talked to them to Drogheda at one point as well, and I think there's been ongoing talks with a couple of groups that have been going on for quite some time, to be honest. And I think you're probably at the stage where people are waiting for a development. There is definitely interest there. There is definitely things have been happening, but I think it's getting to the stage where Drogheda probably are. A lot of clubs are probably very happy that UCD are in the Premier Division this year, but no disrespect to UCD, but they're very likely to finish bottom, and it maybe takes the pressure off everyone else to that degree where you could get automatically relegated. Cork City are in that boat where they still might be in a playoff, but next year Galway are coming up or Waterford are coming up. You're not going to have a team like that in the Premier Division, and a part-time team just won't be able to compete in the next 1, 2, 3 years, and that's where they're at. So I think Kevin Doherty and the staff are doing brilliant at the moment, but there's a shelf life in terms of what they can achieve within their current structure.
And we alluded to it a little bit earlier, but it wasn't a game for the ages with St. Pat's against Shelbourne last night. Strong comments from Damien Duff after the game, kind of saying to his players basically, I expected more from you. It was obviously on TV as well, so there was a lot of excitement in the build-up to the game. He had strong comments during the week as well, saying that the League of Ireland is still looked down on abroad. Damien, I don't know where you lie on those comments. Do you think they're fair, or do you think that it's a bit, I don't know, I suppose Damien Duff maybe taking the hump a little bit?
Yeah, I suppose you'd have to understand what he says when he looked down upon. English clubs and clubs from abroad have been taking players out of the League of Ireland for years, so they obviously feel there's some quality or there's some production level of players. And of course, nobody's going to come in and just give you the money you want. Players, football clubs, blind players are always trying to do the best deal possible. And some ways, sometimes you think that League of Ireland clubs are getting shafted, so to speak, with the scalping of their players. But then that's up to the League of Ireland players to put themselves in a position where they can say no, that they can say, hang on a second, no, we're going to reject that offer, like they do in the UK. If someone from the Championship wants to buy a player from League Two, if the League Two club is in good shape, they can hang tough and get the price that they want to get. I suppose all too often the finances of League of Ireland clubs and the desperate nature of certain clubs at certain times meant that they just had to take any money. So I think that's what Damien is alluding to. Yeah. But if you're buying a football player, you're not going to pay over the odds just to help out the selling club. You're going to try to do the best deal. And if you feel there's a weak spot in a team, and you can take advantage or exploit that and get a player on the cheap, then you're absolutely going to do it. So, we need to stop worrying about what other people outside the league think of us. We get our house in order, we get ourselves sorted out, we get ourselves where we want to be, and then we're in a much stronger bargaining position.
Yeah, I think the culture, the culture of that Duff is referring to is born out of history. It is born out of the belief that you can get away with it by offering nothing in Ireland, because often clubs will accept it and be willing to do business on mad terms. Now, Duff was obviously talking specifically about maybe agents looking for very cheap release clauses in contracts, and also, the headline grabbing stuff was about the odd club in England who would ring up and would say, do you know what GPS systems are in Ireland? And it's actually Stat Sports to be an Irish company who supply most of the GPS vests, I think, to the clubs in the Premier League. But part of that does come from how the reputation for how Ireland has carried itself over the years, and how and I still think it exists here as well. I know exactly what Damien's saying there, that clubs should say no. A League Two club would have no problem saying a player, someone comes in for a player and they'll have no problem I'm saying no and looking for more. Here, I still think there'd be a belief sometimes that you'd be accused of holding a player back by not letting them go to England, and that becomes a thing that's part of it. How dare you almost say no to a bid? You're standing in his way, because we still have this belief that if you don't get this move now, it might never happen for you, and it's the end of the world, and you're denying someone their dream. Whereas obviously it's a little bit sometimes different internally between clubs in England, and that's part of the thing. And Duff has said they're not doing any of these clauses, and when it comes to some of their better players, they're not going to be afraid to say no, and they will bargain. And some clubs have driven a bargain in recent years and got better deals, but it's true that over a long period of time, how you your structures and how you appear and the length of contracts you give your players at underage level, young players, will reflect it. You probably see it, in the women's game as well at the moment, where it's coming to an interesting stage now where you're trying to start to pay players here, and naturally, if you're not paying players in the country, well, then you can't look for, everyone has to go for free because they're amateurs. But you're at the stage as well where it's the culture exists where if you're willing to let players go for nothing, that you won't be respected either, and you have to find that sort of happy medium, and that's where we're trying to get to in this country. But clubs here should look for more money for players. It's true that English clubs will offer scandalous money, I hear these anecdotal tales of 4 or 5 grand. It's a fraction of a player's first team player's wages, and they'll try it because they might get away with it before. But in saying that, the flip side is that clubs here sometimes will have a young player who's 17, 18, a professional, and they'll try and offer them 70 quid a week, 100 quid a week, nothing. And then when they're showing a bit of potential, they might try and get them on a 2.5, 3 year deal to protect their position. But clearly they haven't always done that to everyone from the start. And that's, I think the progress probably lies somewhere in between, and how you portray yourself will have an influence on what people will pay for players from your country.
Yeah, just a quick update there. While Dan was talking, Brentford have gone 3-1 ahead. Spurs supporters leaving the stadium in their droves. Young Wisa, assisted by Amubu, who got the brace beforehand, scoring there. Yeah, no, it's interesting when you say about the women's game and stuff. I host a podcast with Emma Byrne, and she talks about it a lot whenever, say, we talk about players going from the Women's National League over to England to play, and how it benefits the player. It benefits the Irish team on a national level, but it doesn't necessarily benefit the league here all the time. And Emma Byrne herself, who went over at a very young age and played with Arsenal for years, she's always like, well, sure, that's what they're supposed to do. That's how they develop. She has this very strong thing that it's important for the country to have players that are going over, and then also ones that are willing to come back when they maybe retire or when they stop playing, to help out in growing the league here and making sure. But is that sort of you very much say someone who will view the league as a feeder system rather than a league separate to itself?
Yeah, I just think like you look at a lot of countries in Europe, like the problem football has in this country is that like every other country also plays football, in terms of like the comparisons to other sports. And I was looking during the week, the under-17s obviously had a tough game against Poland. They lost 5-1. And UEFA released this report recently, and it's the first report they've done on the youth infrastructure all around the 55 nations. Now, look, this was primarily based around men's top division clubs, right? That was, I think, the sort of the sample size they used. But it had like a list of number of full-time employees in youth football, per country, per club, average under a number of headings, and it's like full-time, like Poland, for example, was 11 to 15 per club, but 3 on scouting or 3 on various other. And Ireland is all like 0 to 1, 0 to 1, 0 to 1, and in most cases that's 0, and like. My point is that a lot of other countries in Europe, like a lot of how they fund themselves is by, you produce players, you invest in youth coaching, but then you sell them. And I think I wouldn't like this attitude. It exists historically here that we outsource everything to England. Like we get a talented player. And it's obviously going to become more of an issue in the women's game now because more are playing and there's more visibility, and there's better underage teams now. But if it gets to a stage where you just get to a point where you wave them off for nothing, and nothing is fed back into the system here, that's fine. Like, but there comes a point where you reach your ceiling, and other countries will shoot ahead of you because they will like be invariably paying more coaches at an underage level. They'll be trying to get some money in from fees for players or compensation to come back in. And I think this idea this is the point of thing. In Ireland, sometimes like you're standing in someone's way by placing some value on them before you go. And I just think that's all wrong. Like I think that's something that you have to change.
But Dan, you have to offer a viable alternative.
Of course.
Like you know what I'm saying. So if you're playing part-time football and you're on 70 quid a week and you're training, at Drogheda or whatever on a midweek night, and all of a sudden an English club comes in, then I think it's a valid argument that you could possibly stand in the kids' way. So it goes back to my original point. We have to get our own house in order, and offer a viable alternative to the kids and say, no, you're going to stay here because you're on a 3-year deal and you're on good money and we're under no pressure to sell you. And if they want you bad enough, they're going to up the price because we see you as a certain value and we're under no pressure to sell you. Now, obviously, that's easier said than done, and that's obviously a dream world where we all want to get to. But I think, with the likes of Damien Duff in the league, we're certainly moving in that direction.
Yeah, like we're always going to sell it. Like, I mean, let's be honest, most leagues in Europe are selling leagues. Like, like pretty much, probably 50, 51, 52 of them probably are. I mean, even now, especially when you're next door to England. And I think people are realistic about that. And that's true, that's my point. Like Shamrock Rovers, when it came to Gavin Bazunu, for example, they were able to bargain a little bit, and he was in the first team, and then they get around £500,000 and they end up getting 3.5 through sell-ons. And I mean, I know Cork City in the last year have let a number of decent young players go, but a lot of them it's like 50-60 grand up front, and then clauses, and you hope that they pay off. But it could be argued, while an equivalent player from Scandinavia might arrive for a slightly bigger fee, it could be argued that the wages and stuff that are offered here, as Damien says, means you can't ask for too much more than what they go for either. And that's the thing. Like it is true. Sometimes there's a culture of blaming everyone else for our problems as well. Like you have to get your house in order too. But clearly there's a happy medium, and you do get annoyed sometimes when you hear of English clubs with big proper budgets coming in and trying to get away with offering like 3-4 grand. You know what I mean? Like that's. But they know that because that's negotiation, and they know that they've probably at some point in their past have come to Ireland and got away with that. Yeah. And then you'll keep trying it again.
And Damien, how much of a risk do you think it is for Damien Duff at the moment to be saying that he doesn't offer release clauses in contracts? Like if you're a young player, is that an exciting prospect of knowing you're going to a team where everyone is fully committed to the project at hand, or is it a little bit off-putting if you know that maybe you have the potential in a year or two to move on over to England or maybe further afield?
I don't think it's risk. I don't think Damien Duff would see it as a risk. he's tired of getting bullied. He's not happy with the situation that Irish players getting scalped on the cheap. So he's putting in a clause because players are getting scalped for very, very cheap because agents are asking for sell-on clauses or minimum whatever they're looking for. And he's just having no more of it. And if a player doesn't want to come in and sign that type of contract, then he's obviously happy for those players to go elsewhere. So I don't think he sees it as a risk at all.
And is it the sort of thing that because he's now speaking out about it quite a bit and making his point quite forcefully, and rightly so, as you say, because he's tired of being bullied by other clubs or possibly by agents, do you think it's something that could spread along the league a bit more, or is it the sort of thing where obviously only certain clubs are going to be able to afford to do it as well, because you're not going to do it if you're one of the lower clubs that need?
Well, I think what's happening now is, though, I think clubs have probably stopped trying to do some of these clauses. I think Bows probably have as well after being done by it. But of course, there's always a workaround. And what you'll find now is that players will be advised to sign shorter contracts here, so that you may not have a release clause in your contract, but your contract may be up sooner. Now, if that player is under 23, then there's a compensation figure that is actually laid down by FIFA, which, actually often it could be quite a high amount, and then you do a negotiation around that. But that's part of the thing. Like Damien Duff says, I'm not going to stand in any player's way, but I've told him we're not going to do these clauses. If someone wants you badly enough, they'll come and get you. We're not talking about clubs here suddenly for a 50 grand player looking for 500 grand. It might just be to get 150, and just to get that small rise, but it all adds up because with the Brexit reality that exists now, we're seeing a lot more players go away at 18, and naturally at 18 they're going as older professionals, so there's a little bit more of a negotiation involved. And like we're talking small steps here, we're talking about that 50 grand just becoming 100, but obviously if there's multiples of that, for 10 players per year, it adds up. And I think that's where we're going to. And I think sometimes it's not like clubs are looking to hold people to ransom too much either, but often that's what agents will try and tell you, that these English clubs won't pay, they won't pay 100 grand, but they'll pay 50. I mean, that's not strictly true. I think if you push them, they will.
Yeah, well, lots of excitement still to come in the rest of the League of Ireland, and a great set of matches last night. We're going to go to an ad break now, but we will be back after these.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Don't miss Man City versus Chelsea on Super Sunday. Live only on Sky Sports.
This is News Talk. The News Talk Business Person of the Month.
Paul Dixon is the Director of Retail Sales and Operations at Circle K. Congratulations, Paul.
I'm delighted with the award on behalf of myself and the team at Circle K. It's fantastic.
The News Talk Business Person of the Month is your chance to showcase what is great about the company you work for, or the founder or boss of a business that you admire, or perhaps even a colleague or friend who has excelled in their field. You can even nominate yourself. Nominate the next News Talk Business Person of the Month by going to newstalk.com/nominate.
The News Talk Business Person of the Month.
With Evershed Sutherland, Ireland's most established and largest global law firm.
Hi, David Keeling here. At Keeling's, we love to work in harmony with Mother Nature, which includes protecting our little friends, the bees. This is the third year of our Keeling's Great Rewilding Initiative, helping to create natural habitats for pollinators to flourish. Look out for our Great Rewilding punnets in store to claim your free native Irish wildflower seed pack, or visit keelingsgreatrewilding.ie for more details. Keeling's, love to grow.
For car insurance, van insurance or home insurance, call the Quote Devil. Unless, of course, you've got money to burn.
The Quote Devil's always got one hell of a quote.
Quote Devil Limited is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Throbbing headache, toothache, backache, period pain. No one pain is the same. But for all those everyday pains, there's a moment when you start to feel release. That moment when you start to get back to being you. And you feels amazing. Panadol Extra film-coated tablets. Powerful pain relief. Release starts here. Contains paracetamol. Always read the label, leaflet.
In the Irish Times weekend, turn to Home and Design to find out how to make your garden flourish for any get-together this summer. Magazine has the top 10 tips for the perfect barbecue with great vegetarian recipes and the best family desserts. Rosita Boland reports from County Clare on the latest standoff between the state and a local community amid housing shortages for migrants. And in sport, John O'Sullivan spends 3 days with Ronan O'Gara, where he talks family, rugby and how he plans to defeat Leinster for the 3rd consecutive year. Buy in store, get it delivered to your door. The Irish Times, because you get it.
You know when a customer says hello and you can't remember if it's Pat, Pat's brother, Pat's cousin or Pat's butcher? And they're looking at you waiting to pay and waiting for you to say their name after all that work setting up your own business to be standing there wishing the ground would swallow you up. Well, Square can't help you there. But we can help with taking payments, checking your inventory, invoicing and the rest. Square, everything your business needs. Almost.
Square is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Hi, I'm Dara Quilty, DSPCA Ambassador, with some tips and advice about dogs. All dogs thrive on routine and have basic needs, like regular exercise, mental stimulation and affection. If you don't have time to train or walk a dog, then you probably shouldn't get one. If you're going to leave your dog at home all day on their own, definitely don't get one. Every day, dogs are being abandoned and the DSPCA is struggling to cope. If you can't give a dog what it needs, then don't get one. And if you do have a dog, please look after them properly and be a responsible pet owner. Find out more at dspca.ie.
School for Cats is School for Cats.
Have the time of your life this summer
at Forever Young Festival with
the legendary Squeeze,
Erasure,
Bananarama,
Billy Ocean,
ABC,
Tony Hadley,
Soul to Soul,
Thompson Twins,
Midure,
Go West,
Hothouse Flowers,
Cry Before Dawn,
and many, many more.
14th to 16th July. Tickets from €79.
ForeverYoungFestival.ie.
Subject to licence.
Dundeal Motors is home to Ireland's largest range of new and premium used cars from all of Ireland's trusted car dealerships. That's why you'll find Audi Wexford on Dundeal. Visit the Audi Wexford showroom on Dundeal to find your next car. Dundeal Motors, for Ireland's largest range of new and used cars from all of Ireland's trusted car dealerships. Visit dundeal.ie today.
Summer's starting to heat up at Woodies with fantastic offers on garden furniture and barbecues. Like the 6-seater Monaco patio set for just €199. Save €50, along with 20% off all Omaha and Phoenix barbecues. Spruce up the garden too, with buy one get one half price on Hammerite and Cupernall paints. But hurry, offers are for a limited time and only while stocks last. Shop the way that suits you, in-store, online or click and collect. Woodies, we're all homemakers. Terms and conditions apply.
With soaring energy costs, there's never been a better time to install an Energlaze solar electric system from Huawei. It will help power your home with clean, green, renewable energy, dramatically reduce energy bills and your carbon footprint. Future-proof your home with the power of Huawei Fusion Solar from Energlaze. And now you can save even more with up to €2,400 in grants, zero VAT, and you can get paid for any extra electricity you don't use. Take the first step today. Visit energlaze.ie towards a greener, warmer home every step of the way.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky, don't miss Newcastle versus Leicester on Monday Night Football. Live only on Sky Sports.
This is News Talk.
Welcome back to Off the Ball and the football show on this Saturday. I am joined by Dan McDonnell and Damien Delaney. The football show is brought to you by Sky, proud partner and supporter of the Republic of Ireland women's national team. So Tottenham Brentford has just finished Tottenham's last home game this season, and won't be too happy a day for any Spurs supporters out there. Maybe it's a little bit better that JD isn't in the hot chair now and he's on his way over to the Aviva, where hopefully Leinster can give him something else to shout about. But 3-1 loss for them there. Harry Kane getting the first goal off a classic Harry Kane-esque free kick that gives him 28 goals so far this season, and then Brian Mbubu getting 2 goals, and then Yohan Wissa finishing it off in the 88th minute there. A lot of talk about Harry Kane. What's he going to do this summer? Is this possibly the last time we have seen him in a Spurs jersey at home for them?
Yeah, you wonder. I mean, it is their last home game of the season. I know, Damien will know the routine. The last home game, you go round, and you applaud the fans or whatever. And if you've had an absolutely horrendous season like Spurs have had here, you're like, sometimes they go back in, don't they, and come out 10 minutes later, and I'm kind of thinking, is anyone going to be left? I'm not sure if you experienced that anywhere after any bad seasons.
No, I mean, like, look, I mean, ultimately, like, I think that stadium would have been sparse. You know, there wouldn't have been a lot of people, but there would have been diehard Spurs fans there. You know what I mean? That will hang around and just, I won't say thank the players, probably be thanked really for their patience by the players would probably be the reason why they'd stay. But, you know, the players have to do it. You know, you can't not do it because it's an awful look. So the players probably just want the season to be over and done with. Everyone just wants to get in the holidays now, regroup and start again next year. And hopefully Spurs can sort out their issues, get a permanent manager in place, and start competing again. But a lot of questions for Spurs the next couple of months.
You kind of wonder, like, will Kane move? Is it possible? Like, I mean, it's sort of, I know it seems to have cranked up again now, and like there was a moment we were talking about here in the second half where like the camera was on Daniel Levy watch, and it caught him, and I don't know who was next to him who sort of gave him a little pat on the knee, as clearly like fans were chanting about him at this stage, and it's all very public. But I mean, there is an argument, Damien, that like could selling Kane in some ways make sense, you know, in terms of some kind of rebuild. I mean, it seems illogical in a way that it could be good for Spurs in any way. It's more so good for Harry Kane. But like, is it plausible he could go?
It's absolutely plausible he could go, but I mean, you got to look at where he could land. Where's, you know, who would want him? Daniel Levy is a notorious negotiator, probably one of the toughest, one of the strictest. Just from hearing stories, you know, from players that were at Spurs, how difficult he can be to deal with. And he will not let anybody get Harry Kane on the cheap. Even though he's only got a year left in his contract, he's going to look for probably over and above the market value. You know, the way to determine a player's market value, you know, someone like Harry Kane with a year left in his contract. You know, there are some clubs out there that are in dire need of a number 9 and might be willing to pay over the odds. But if anyone thinks that Daniel Levy's going to let Harry Kane go for the benefit of Harry Kane, I don't think they're going to generate a huge amount of money with a year left in his contract. I mean, it'll be a significant sum, but it's not going to be like when they sold Gareth Bale and bought 4 or 5 players. So it just depends as well what Harry Kane does. I mean, if Harry Kane says, look, I'm not playing next year, and really threatens to go on strike to force through a move, but even then, Daniel Levy will not be bullied. He will not be cowed. He will stand firm, and I know that he will make Harry Kane come back pre-season and put him through the indignity of showing up for pre-season after handing in a transfer request, threatening to go on strike, you know, and then eventually sell him the day before the transfer window closed in early September, you know. So it's going to be a difficult one for Harry Kane to get out of there. They don't even have a manager. Like, you can't sell your best player without a manager. You know, that's outrageous. He's going to have, you know, Daniel Levy will absolutely be saying to Harry Kane, I've got to wait for a manager to come in first. And when the manager comes in, he'll assess the squad, and then he needs to be appraised of the situation in terms of, you know, what money he'll get out of the Harry Kane sale, if there's money available. So, you know, it's not a nice situation for Harry Kane, to be honest with you. Does he want to leave? You know, I had a discussion a couple of weeks ago there with Kenny. Kenny was like adamant that Harry Kane was set on this goal-scoring Premier League record. I don't know, you know, like Kenny was of the opinion that he'd prioritise that over trophies, you know, because if he leaves Tottenham, where's he going to land in England? When you look at the teams that are really going to be competing for the trophies over the next coming years, probably only Manchester United will be the only ones interested in taking him. Are Manchester United going to be title contenders in the next couple of years? You know, debatable. Depends on their situation as well with the takeover and whether they can sort out. They're a club with their own issues. You know, after that, then you're looking at, you know, Bayern Munich are in dire need of a number 9. So does Harry Kane decide, okay, I'm going to go to Manchester United, stay in England, and going to go after Alan Shearer's record? That's my priority now in life. Or is he going to say, I'm going to go to Bayern Munich and compete for, well, probably won't say compete for Bundesligas, win Bundesligas, and compete for Champions Leagues, you know? So these are all the questions that he'll need to be asking. You won't know. I was of the opinion that he'd take trophies over the Premier League record. And if he's looking for trophies, I'm not sure going to Manchester United, you're going to be, you know, you might be guaranteed a League Cup or an FA Cup, but in terms of challenging for a Premier League and Champions League, which is what he wants, I presume, you know, that'll be the interesting thing.
It's interesting, the kind of thing about whether he wants the record or he wants the trophies. Like, the thing about the record is they're always beaten. At some stage, someone's going to come along, it's a little bit better or gets a little bit more opportunities, and then that record is gone once again. Whereas if you have a trophy, even if it is a FA Cup or a League Cup, that medal is always there for you. And there's nothing to say as well that it won't be both that happens for him as well.
Yeah, I'm trying to think how many goals does Haaland need per season to get to that record on his averages? You know, like he's got to be.
But that's the other thing, that he's not even close. Like, you know, he's 40 goals shy of it. You know, I mean, that's still 2 full seasons of scoring 20 goals a season. I mean, it's not guaranteed. If he picks up an injury, you know, he's going to be 32 by the time he breaks. I'm not saying, listen, he's going to do it if he stays in England, but it's not like he's 15 shy of it and he's going to do it by Christmas next year. You know, it's a couple of years away, so I'm not sure hanging around for something that's going to take that long to achieve. But again, you wouldn't know that until you're inside his head.
Yeah, I think we see the problem everyone has in the Premier League is, I mean, say challenging for titles. Like, who can even compete with Man City? Like, this is a broader issue as well. I mean, what's that? They're going for 5 and 6. I mean, is there any reason to think that they won't maintain that pace unless? I mean, okay, we'll see what happens with these takeover situations that are going on. Like, we'll see what happens with the Manchester United one. Obviously, if, say, Qatar come into the mix, I mean, like, obscene wealth and spending is what they're all about. And you know, and we wonder what happens with Newcastle as well. That, okay, maybe Middle East money can challenge Middle East money. But it is, I mean, that's great for Harry Kane. But as Damien points out, like, his age is there where he's thinking, like, the next 3 years, the next 3-4 years. If he's 23, you know, if he's 24, then I think you definitely go to probably someone like Manchester United if owners are making sounds about going that way. It's a little bit more of an equation, but, you know, in saying that, maybe there's obviously a certain thing about being the one club man, which is great. You know, you have a legacy that comes with that, and he's broken the Spurs records, and you know, you're coming back in years to come and you're revered because you haven't left in some way. But, you know, maybe like anyone in life, you're only human. You just want the change just to see how it goes. And maybe it's not guaranteed trophies if you go to Manchester United, but maybe it's just a better chance, and it's something fresh, and it's something new, and it's a project that you can throw yourself into, and you never know. And that's the. I mean, wasn't there talk of PSG before as well? Probably when Pochettino was there, and you could see that, and that's probably there's an element of guaranteed silverware that comes with that you have with Bayern, but it's not an easy equation. But I sort of wonder.
Factoring in all what you said there, like, you know, I mean, you know, would you want to be a one club man? Would you leave to go to a club that's going to compete for, you know, League Cups and FA Cups? Man United, even if the takeover those go through, are probably a couple of years away from challenging for leagues. You know, do you just say, you know, I'm going to stick with Spurs because, you know, and it's a big if Spurs manage to get themselves right, they'll be challenging for those types of competitions as well. And you have the legacy of being, you know, a one club man. And in fairness to Harry Kane, it's very hard to read where he's at because he's never out in the press. He's never ever mentioned it. You know, I know there was a stage, was it last year before City bought Haaland, that there was rumours that they wanted him, but they decided that paying the 100 million that Spurs were looking for was just not worth it because they obviously knew they were getting Haaland in 12 months' time, and they just wanted kind of a stopgap, if you know what I mean. So it's an interesting one actually to see how that plays out, but it won't be an easy situation for Harry Kane to get out of there.
It feels like almost a sense of deja vu to what he went through last season, because there's the exact same amount of uncertainty in terms of where he might go or who is interested. It was City were kind of the main contenders, but there was a lot of other teams also there that saying they might be interested in him. And then there was, as Damien was saying, all this stuff with Daniel Levy where he was like, I don't know if I want to let you go. And like, there was a lot of embarrassment for Harry Kane around that. And you'd wonder is if he knows that Daniel Levy is in a similar sort of mindset now and is thinking about, you know, I'm not going to let you go until a manager comes in. I'm not going to let you go unless I get exactly the amount of money I want. Even mentally, does Harry Kane want to go through that again? Yeah, and like there was managerial uncertainty around Spurs as well. And then, of course, there came the point where Spurs hired Conte and everyone was thinking, okay, and like all the Spurs fans, or maybe it was just JD, like thought Spurs were going to come second this year. Yeah, and like that was a view at the start of the season that did exist. Like there was, you know, there were people, and you know, taking the joke on the side, who were very confident Spurs would be a top four side this year just because of the Conte factor, his impact, and that it proved not to be the case. And you kind of wonder, it's been such a disastrous season for Spurs that, and maybe it's just people you know when you're listening to, that it feels like Spurs fans might be more understanding if he was beaten down and wanted to try something different now.
as compared to when the last time when Spurs had been more competitive in recent memory, had been to a Champions League final. And I don't know, would it be as rancorous if he tried to go now with a year left in his deal compared to last time when, of course, him being signed into a deal which had no wiggle room. Like we talked about release clauses earlier in a different context. Some people would say he should have had something in to protect him for that, and he didn't. Would it be as fraught if you tried to go down that road this time? I think what Damien says about Levy is completely right. No matter what the scenario is, they're not going to make it easy. And maybe the option is there for him. I mean, it's a completely different thing to see his contract out and then go to Europe. Do it that way. I mean, obviously,
what would he be then, Dan? 31 when his contract?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm trying to think he'd be in that territory.
Right, listen, it's not the worst thing in the world. But again, you've had another year of going through the mill at Spurs. Like, mentally, can he get himself in a place to get through 12 more months? Or does he just bite the bullet and sign a new long-term contract at Spurs and just go, do you know what? The opportunity is passed for me to make it to a Manchester City or to a Juventus maybe, a real top echelon team in Europe. That I want to say Juventus won't be competing with the reassessment of their points deduction with Champions League, but a top-end Champions League team has that opportunity passed, and there's nothing really in the Premier League that's jumping out at me that's a whole pile better than staying at Spurs. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting, say, if United are interested in him and they're going, they're looking at new contract situations for Marcus Rashford and like the whole sort of knock-on effect of bringing in a very well-established player like Harry Kane into a team that you get the sense that Ten Hag is trying to grow from the bottom up and kind of take away all the stuff that came before.
Yeah, it's true actually. But you could see how Kane and Rashford could work, together on a regular basis, I suppose. Like, I just think with Manchester United, there's so many things there that are up in the air with the takeover and all that, because that whenever that goes through for someone, like every owner likes to make some kind of statement. You need to sort of, you need to announce yourself, and I suppose.
Would Harry Kane be a statement?
Well, so this is the question. I don't know. Like, is an England captain and potential Premier League record scorer a statement? In some ways, you feel like it is. It could be sold as such, but I don't know. You're sceptical, Damien, on that. You're not sort of. Look, I mean, it's not exciting you as a sort of a purchase, no.
No, it's got Manchester United written all over it. When you look at the players they're signing, they're probably the only ones that would pay 20% over his market value just to get him in the door. He's a big name. He's going to sell a lot of shirts, but his age profile, the length of contract you're going to have to give him. At his age, he's going to at least take minimum four, probably closer to 5-year deal. Now you're hitched to him like Casemiro till their mid-30s. And how does that affect you moving forward? But I suppose if there's Qatari money comes in, that's a moot point, really at this stage. They will throw a 5-year deal at him and go, do you know what, in 2 years' time we'll deal with it and we'll pick up the pieces of that. But I don't know, I just think that scouring across Europe, there's young, hot strikers, or there's better age profile players that are still on the way up. Maybe a lot of United and Spurs fans would disagree with that. Harry Kane is an incredibly good striker, but have we seen the best of him? I mean, he will guarantee you 20 goals a season, but the real elite Harry Kane, maybe those days are gone. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, he's just talking at the moment to the fans at the Tottenham Stadium, so we will check in if there's anything interesting that he said after we chat to James O'Donoghue, who is down in Kerry, ready to go for Kerry and Mayo. James, how are you? Set the scene. What's it like down in Killarney today?
Hi, Kathleen. How are you doing? Oh, it is such an unbelievable occasion down here. It's 20 degrees. There's 25,000 people going to be in Fitzgerald Stadium. The atmosphere is unreal. I walked through town just to come up to the stadium about an hour ago, and the atmosphere around town is just incredible. Killarney has been starved of big games over the last couple of years, because the last big game really was 2019 against Mayo in a group stage game when really the Munster Championship isn't filling out the stadium. So to see Fitzgerald Stadium this packed and everyone just buzzing for football is unbelievable. There's just a great energy around town, and we were just saying it's actually a pity that there's only one game like this in the season. It would be lovely to have games like this in venues like this 3 or 4 times in a year because it deserves it. But the atmosphere down here is unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm jealous. I can hear the atmosphere behind you there, and the nice weather as well. I am also very, very jealous of. 3 late changes for Mayo. How do you think that's going to affect the game? O'Hora, McHugh and Doherty coming in?
I think it will affect Mayo. I mean, if you think about it, Mayo have had 4 or 5 weeks to get ready for this game, and to come in then with 3 injuries is very disappointing for them. If you think the downside of probably playing matches is you're risking injuries, you shouldn't have as many injuries after a training block, so they'll be very disappointed to come in here without Paddy Durkin, without Cone, and possibly without Fionn McDonough. So they'll be disappointed they don't have a full pick. I think that's the first thing to note. But how the changes are going to affect him, I think the main one is Paddy Durkin. To be missing his attacking prowess and also his marking ability. He probably would have picked up Paddy Clifford, I'd imagine. So to be missing him in attack and defence is a massive loss. That said, they have O'Hora to come in. O'Hora has a lot of experience. He marked Clifford last year twice, so he's been in and around the action. So it won't be too big a loss defensively in that way, but definitely in terms of attack, I think Durkin provides so much for them. So they'll be very disappointed that they come down here without the full pick, I think.
And quick prediction of who's going to win today?
Well, I don't want to jinx them, but Kerry do have a fantastic record on Fitzgerald Stadium. It's where they train. You know, they're here a Tuesday, a Thursday and a Saturday every single week. They know this place like the back of their hand. It's such a warm day, and Kerry haven't really done any sort of an aggressive warm-up. They've just been kicking at the post for the last half an hour. So I imagine that they're going to be fairly on point in terms of their skills and their shooting. So if Kerry can be accurate up front, I expect them to win. But that said, Mayo have a training block under their belt. They're going to be fit, they're going to be aggressive. So if there's an upset here, it won't be the biggest surprise in the world. But I think that Kerry are well set.
I'm shocked that you picked Kerry, James, but hopefully we'll get a good match anyways, and I doubt it'll be the last time we see these two teams going up in epic battles this year. Thanks so much, James, and we'll check in again with you later on in the show.
Thanks, Kathleen. Talk soon.
So that's James O'Donoghue there, who is down at Kerry versus Mayo in Killarney, and there will be updates across News Talk throughout the day, and you'll be able to find all the information as well wherever you get your podcast or your digital shows. We're getting close to our 3 o'clock kickoff, so just as a reminder to everyone, Liverpool are facing Aston Villa, Wolves, Everton in that important relegation battle, Bournemouth, Man United, Fulham, Crystal Palace, and then later on at 5:30 we have Nottingham Forest versus Arsenal in what is a pretty much do or die match for them, although you would say at this stage they're probably
dead.
gone.
They're dead already.
They're already gone, although they have a dog now at the London Colony. Arteta has brought in a dog called Win to encourage the players. So they already had a cat, and now they have a dog who is a full-time carer, and the staff at London Colony all have like a rota as to who walks them every day, and he was there for Aaron Ramsdale signing his new contract as well. So yeah, I
completely missed this, I have to say.
I thought it was a joke. I saw it on social media first, and I was like, they have a dog, okay, I can kind of see it, you know, team building might be nice. And then I saw the dog was called Win, and I was like, dear Lord, as a gunner myself, I am slightly ashamed, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, if it works for the team, it works for the team. You can't deny what Arsenal have done this season so far.
And they've had an amazing season, but like it just invites scorn.
Oh yeah, like it was funny because as well, part of it was that there's an olive tree on the at London Colony that Arteta uses to encourage players and as a source of inspiration, and he got the gardener to do up a mini version of the olive tree that used to sit in the middle of their team meetings and stuff as, you know, shoots growing or something like that. But yeah, we'll talk a bit more about that after the break. Football is brought to you by Sky, proud partner and supporter of the Republic of Ireland women's national football team.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch West Ham versus Leeds on Super Sunday. Live only on Sky Sports.
This is News Talk. Don't miss a thing. Follow at News Talk FM on Instagram for exclusive updates, videos, and behind-the-scenes content.
The future is yours for the taking. When you become one of the 8,000 students across the island of Ireland studying with the Open University. Join the experts in distance learning on one of many internationally recognised degrees and skills-based short courses. And suddenly, your options are thrown wide open. Search OU Ireland to find out more. The Open University. The future is open.
I'm Louise Cooney and I'm here to tell you about the new season of my podcast Open Book, which is out now. This season on Open Book, we're all about honest chats, life lessons and what success really looks like. Sharing experiences like persevering through grief and recognising that it's time to leave your dream job, all to help inspire you to live your best life. I've got a great lineup of interviews that I'm excited to share with you. New episodes of Open Book come out every Wednesday, and if that's not enough, you can also check out the bonus on Mondays. Listen first on the Go Loud app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Guaranteed Irish business members like Peninsula continue to sustain jobs and communities across Ireland. Peninsula is committed to delivering professional excellence in HR and employment law services. With over 25 years of supporting businesses all over Ireland, Peninsula's approach tailors HR services specifically for your needs. Success starts here. Visit peninsulaireland.com or call 1-800-719029 to schedule your complimentary HR consultation. So look out for the G. Guaranteed Irish. Altogether better.
Live electricity wires are always near, and coming close to them can be dangerous. So always ask yourself, are you sure it's safe? Look out for electricity wires above and below you. If in doubt, call us on 1-800-372-999. It might just save your life. ESB Networks. Stay safe and stay clear of electricity wires.
Mr. Blue Sky, please tell us why. The Lotto jackpot is an estimated €9 million. Play responsibly in-store, in-app or at lottery.ie. The National Lottery. It could be you.
Design driven by impulse. Performance in tune with your emotions. An instant connection. Electric. At Cupra, we believe in galvanizing these instincts. It's why the Cupra Born, our 100% electric model, looks, feels and behaves unlike anything else on the road. Start seeing what's possible and go full electric with the Cupra Born. Act on your impulse. Test drive today, own it tomorrow. Search Cupra Official.
Summer's starting to heat up at Woodies with fantastic offers on garden furniture and barbecues. Like the 6-seater Monaco patio set for just €199. Save €50, along with 20% off all Omaha and Phoenix barbecues. Spruce up the garden too, with buy one get one half price on Hammerite and Cupernall paints. But hurry, offers are for a limited time and only while stocks last. Shop the way that suits you, in-store, online or click and collect. Woodies, we're all homemakers. Terms and conditions apply.
Employers, pay employee benefits instantly with Clever Cards. Order Clever Cards digital MasterCards online and send to your employees immediately. No late delivery or managing distribution of physical cards. Order online at clevercards.com. Clever Cards MasterCards are issued pursuant to Clever Cards interbank agreement with MasterCard and certified by Apple Pay and Google Pay. E-money's access with Clever Cards MasterCards are safeguarded and protected under EU electronic money directives, and the business is regulated for conduct purposes by the Central Bank of Ireland. Terms and conditions apply.
Rock against homelessness in aid of Focus Ireland. Live at 3 Olympia Theatre, Friday, May 26th. Lyra performing a full set, plus Amy, Tosheen, Pastiche, Bobby Arlo, Jack O'Rourke, May Kay and Isaac Butler. Hosted by Laura Whitmore. Don't miss Rock Against Homelessness. Tickets from €27 on sale now. Additional charges may apply.
Join the conversation at Newstalk FM on Facebook for the latest headlines, videos and thought-provoking podcasts. On 106 to 108 FM, on the Newstalk app, powered by Go Loud and smart speakers. This is Newstalk.
It's 3 o'clock. This is Ken Murray. Good afternoon. The Health Minister has renewed his commitment to create a universal healthcare system. Speaking at Fianna Fáil's healthcare conference today, Stephen Donnelly said his top priority is improving access. Minister Donnelly says everything they're doing in government is about working towards healthcare provision for all.
It's one of the great unfinished projects of our republic. A healthcare service where every man, woman and child can get access to the care they need when they need it. Not based on how much money they have or how much money a child's parent has, not based on where they live. A public health service that works for everybody in the country. That's our goal.
Sinn Féin is still out in front in Northern Ireland's council elections and looks set to become the biggest party in local government. 390 of the 462 seats have been filled. Sinn Féin on 127 seats have gained 27, while the DUP on 110 seats amounts to no change so far. The SDLP on 30 seats have lost 14. Party leader Colm Eastwood says it's been a difficult election.
It's a very difficult context for us. It's a very unique context. It was basically a referendum on the current political context, and there was only going to be one result in that circumstance.
A team of 73 athletes are gearing up to represent Ireland in 12 sports at the Special Olympics in Berlin next month. It's the largest inclusive sporting event in the world, and Team Ireland has a strong legacy on the world stage. Athletes from across the country are training in Blanchardstown in Dublin today for the prestigious games. Fermoy footballer Stephen O'Leary is delighted to be part of the lineup.
The Special Olympics to me has been an amazing thing for me, and I've been involved in it for 14 years, and it's been really special to me for years, because I've achieved a lot over the last couple of years with soccer. If it wasn't for Special Olympics, I wouldn't have accomplished as a lot through the years. I loved being part of it.
And finally, Niall Horan has made Britain's Sunday Times rich list. The Mullingar native has landed himself in the top 35 richest people under the age of 35 with €62 million. Elsewhere, the owners of pennies have topped the retail section. The children of Galen Weston have a €16.7 billion fortune between them. It's 3:02.
News Talk weather.
Thanks to Ryanair. Proposing this summer? Get hitched in Paris, Lisbon or Rome with Ryanair's low-fare flights.
Scattered outbreaks of rain and drizzle will continue into tonight, mostly persistent early on, especially in Ulster and Connacht. Misty locally too. Lows temperatures of 8 to 12 degrees Celsius in just light variable breezes. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky, don't miss Newcastle versus Leicester on Monday Night Football. Live only on Sky Sports.
This is News Talk.
And you are welcome back to Off the Ball. I'm Kathleen McNamee here with Dan McDonnell and Damien Delaney on the line. Our 3 o'clock kickoffs have just started. I have Liverpool Aston Villa in front of me, and it is still 0-0. Liverpool's last home game for the season. And much like Harry Kane at Spurs, they're going to be saying goodbye to a few players there. I saw a massive poster of Firmino's face there down the Kop end. How much of a legacy is Firmino going to leave at Liverpool?
Oh yeah, I mean, like between I suppose like Firmino and Milner and Oxlade-Chamberlain, there's obviously different grades there. I mean, Firmino's is always going to be synonymous with a great period in their history because it's the three of them together. Like it's the Firmino, Salah, and Mane axis, and probably the unsung hero of the three, you could argue. But probably the one whose value became more apparent when he wasn't in the team, maybe at times as opposed to when he was in it. So, I think Liverpool fans are going to look back on the last, whatever happens now, they're going to look back on the last sort of half decade very fondly for a long period of time, and his legacy is very safe.
And Damien, in terms of the fact that there are quite a few players, I suppose, with a bit of experience leaving Liverpool at the end of this season, what does that mean for Klopp's rebuild after this season? So it hasn't been the greatest of years for them, but I think a lot of people still think that, it's Liverpool. There's always the potential to come back and have another great season.
Oh, Liverpool will undoubtedly be back next year, whatever happened or whatever went on. I know they had a lot of injuries as well, and they seem to have lost their way. A lot of players started to look a little bit tired. But they managed to get it going the last 7 or 8 games. Really, really got it going. And it's just the springboard they're looking for going into next year. I think it's a good thing that those players are moving on. They've all been there a long time. Their production levels have dropped off. I know James Milner's production levels haven't been great for a number of years, but he's always contributed, and he's obviously a really, really good character off the pitch as well, and setting standards himself. And Henderson always seem to be mentioned when it comes to leadership roles. So it's right, but now it's up to other players to pick up where they left off. That's just like the passing of the torch, so to speak. And the new lads will have learned from James Milner and his leadership and his skill set, and it's other players now to pick it up. So, look, Liverpool are due a little bit of a rejig in midfield, and for that to happen, you need to move on some players that have maybe gone a little bit stale and maybe weren't contributing as much as what Liverpool were looking for, and it's a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the other players has been a bit of movement about, or talk about anyways, although Klopp was very strong this week about keeping him, was Kelleher, the Irish goalkeeper. How likely or unlikely do you think a move is for him?
Yeah, I saw Klopp's comments yesterday were very emphatic about the possibility of him staying, or that he wouldn't be open to the concept of selling him, which I think is surprising. Now, look, Klopp probably hasn't just been asked about it before. It's not. It's a big news agenda story here rather than there, and I suppose the number 2 keeper isn't on anyone's mind. I mean, Kelleher hasn't played a league game this year. I was looking at, you always look at the end of every year, the stats for how many Irish players played in the Premier League this year, and I was just looking at it the other day. I'm like, where's Kelleher? He didn't even play a game at all. And he's not, he's getting on to sort of 24 now territory, Kelleher, and I think he sort of is at the stage where he has to move. Now, it's possible that they facilitate some kind of season-long loan, or you can always do the sale and the buyback option. But I suppose he did sign a good long-term deal in recent memory that sort of protected his. Naturally probably put him into a different level of financial security and has given him a good contract, and I suppose Liverpool can have a degree of control. But if you look at it, step back and look at it independently, like I understood why Kelleher would want to stay at Liverpool for as long as possible, to be around an elite environment every day, to be playing or around big games, Champions League finals. You can't begrudge him that, and I think sometimes it was unreasonable to expect him to just get out of there straight away. But I think he's past that tipping point now of it being just maybe not hindering him. And he said it himself, like he was very clear on Irish Duty last year. He spoke like someone who was at that point of wanting to go, and I feel for now that is what he needs to do. But Klopp's comments would suggest it's not going to be easy.
Yeah.
I don't know, Dan. It stinks a little bit of like upselling a little bit.
Do you reckon?
Not for sale. Yeah, I do. I don't think Liverpool are in a situation where they have unlimited amount of cash to spend. They're going to have to raise some funds, and he's an obvious one. Where you're not the detriment to it's not to the detriment of the squad. He's obviously an important member, but he's a sub goalkeeper. You can kind of pick another one of those up in a free transfer and just go, you know what, we'll get with that through the year. Alisson's injury record is really, really good, and if he does get injured, look, we always have someone to get us through a short period, and then maybe get an emergency one in or something like that. I think he would command a fee, and I think the manager is just upselling it. You're not for sale, and if he's obviously had interest in him. And obviously people have inquired, and he's basically sending a message out, he's not for sale. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him move on in the summer.
Yeah, because I know when I covered Arsenal and Liverpool in the Conti Cup, it was 2 years nearly ago now, and I was over in London, and loads of people were asking me, what's the view of Kelleher at home in Ireland? Because they were all English journalists, and they were kind of almost baffled that he was still behind the scenes at Liverpool, and at that stage hadn't really pushed for a move. Whereas I think a lot of people here have the same sort of way you looked at it, Dan, of, it's great to be in that elite environment. It's the perfect training ground. He obviously was their penalty saver a couple of times, or penalty hero a couple of times. In terms of where, if he did go, where he might land himself and where he might progress even more and actually make even more of a name for himself. I know like a couple of people mentioned the fact that Spurs are in the hunt for a goalkeeper this year, but I don't know if you necessarily want an Irish player going into the general madness that is Spurs at the moment.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's obviously a bit of chat about Brentford because their keeper looks to be moving on, but then they've been linked with another goalkeeper. I don't really know. I mean, I think at one point this is a year ago or so, people were wondering about Leicester when Schmeichel was moving on, and I'm not entirely sure. I suppose like there might be a little bit of a merry-go-round because there's a bit of talk of interest in Sanchez at Brighton, and even though he hasn't been playing in recent weeks, but I think there'll be movement. I think he would get a Premier League move. There's no doubt. And maybe what Damien says is right. Just a little bit of gameplay in here by Liverpool. They're aware of the interest, and I think actually, to be fair, it has been reported at various times this season that Liverpool do need to raise some money, and Kelleher's name was mentioned. I don't know. It's very hard to say. Like the weird thing about Kelleher is that in some ways he's still a little bit of an unknown quantity, which it seems like he's played in some.
Because he's never had a run.
He's never played. Yeah, he's never had that. Like Gavin Bazunu this year has faced into like, you know, playing 32 games and, you know, 5-6 games in a row of conceding goals, and, you know, the scrutiny, the misery that comes with that. And I mean, he'd had that at Rochdale a couple of years ago in a COVID time, but this is like very public, the Premier League. And Kelleher has come in at times, but has always pleasantly surprised people. And to go from that to a place where you're the number one for a team lower down the table, but I think that'd be great for him. I think he's at the point where that's exactly where he needs. But I think, in fairness, there have been times where he's come into a big Liverpool game and he looks so calm, so good with the ball at his feet, and you're thinking, yes, everything you hear is positive about him. But in a way, until he's had that pressure of maybe not being in that wonderful environment every day, where I'd imagine Liverpool is still a pretty good dressing room. I know they haven't had a great season. I'd imagine it's a decent dressing room. You know, you go lower down the table to a club that's in relegation, you have players looking to get out, and you have this, and Damien will know the environments can be different. You know, it's a completely different test for a player, and I'd be very interested to see him try and negotiate that.
Yeah, and just a quick score update. United are 1-0 up. Casemiro there getting a goal in the 9th minute, still not 0-0 in Liverpool, Aston Villa. It's kind of the curse of the Irish goalkeeper between Kelleher and Courtney Brosnan, not getting a lot of game time, but then whenever they do play, managing to actually perform quite well, which is, you know, not bad for an Irish sense of things, but you would want to see them playing a little bit more. And then in terms of Bazunu, Damien, do you think that after what has been an incredibly stressful year for him, sticking with Southampton and I suppose having that year in the Championship, you know, is that the sort of time that he might need to rebuild confidence, or is it the sort of thing where he's sitting there now looking and seeing, well, is there maybe a lower Premier League side that I can go up and stay in the Premier League with?
He can look all he wants, but I'm not sure it's going to be there, to be honest with you. You know, I'm pretty sure everyone who gets relegated will be looking up the league thinking, is there anywhere I can go? But, you know, he's not had a good season. There's no getting away from that. You can't deny that. And, you know, I think Dan's point there is valid about Caoimhín as well. Like, you never know until you go out and you have to play game after game after game, let alone season after season after season. I mean, that's the true test of a professional, is can you live your life in a way where you can keep churning out decent performances at whatever level you're playing at, you know, even if it's League Two. To be a professional footballer every week is a difficult thing to do, you know, to be able to forget about the previous match, whether it was good or bad, and prepare for the next one and have a level of confidence going into it. And I think that Gavin has had a really, really tough season. No, it can be the making of him. It's happened before. He can go into the Championship and realise that, you know, I've learned how to be professional, have a good season, get some confidence, and then bounce back to the Premier League. So it's not necessarily a bad thing for him. But I mean, in terms of going back to the Premier League as a starter, I think that's absolutely not going to happen. Does he want to go back to the Premier League as a number 2 or number 3 goalkeeper? Of course not. Southampton have made a huge investment in him. He got dropped out of the team at the back end of the season for Alex McCarthy. And he just needs to go away, regroup, go back into the Championship, regain some confidence, put in some good performances. Southampton will undoubtedly be up near the top end of the Championship competing, and he just needs to establish himself and then potentially get a move back to the Premier League in a better place.
Yeah, we'll look at the relegation battle that is ongoing in a little bit. But first, we're going to go back to James O'Donoghue down in Killarney to get a bit of a score update. All level down there at the moment, 3-3, James?
Hi, Kathleen. Yeah, it's 3 each after about 14 minutes, but it could be a very different story. Kerry started very sluggish and Mayo were so physical and aggressive, and only for Shane Ryan in goal, then Kerry would have been in a lot of trouble. He's after making 2 unbelievable saves from one-on-one chances for Mayo. First of all, the ball was kicked into Ryan O'Donoghue, who won a mark, and Kerry didn't track the runners, and he gave it off to Diarmuid O'Connor in on goal, one-on-one with Shane, and he pulls off a great save. And then Mayo did a brilliant turnover around halfway on Sean O'Shea as he was coming out of defence, and they were in on goal again, and this time it was James Carr, and Shane Ryan made himself so big to make the save. So Kerry could have been 6 down. At the moment it's 3 each. Clifford has just put over a great score from play from about 45 yards. As Mayo are through again, they're in on goal. Pádraig O'Hora has fisted it over. It's wide open, Kathleen. There could be 5 or 6 goals gone in already, but at the moment it's 4-3 to Mayo, but a great game.
It sounds like fairly breathless stuff down in Killarney at the moment, and James will be bringing us more updates throughout the afternoon. Just looking at the scores in the Premier League at the moment, Manchester United still have that 1-0 lead, and then it is 0-0 in all the other games. So in terms of the relegation battle at the moment, we know Southampton and Leicester pretty much gone. Southampton definitely gone.
Yeah, Leicester maybe not, but not looking great. Yeah, not looking great.
Yeah, it's a tough run for them. In terms of the other ones, so you have Leeds on 31, Everton 32, Nottingham Forest on 34, and you would assume West Ham are pretty much all right there on 37. Who is your bet for who is going to be the final three? It's like the X Factor.
I'm not sure. I must admit now, like, this is the thing, like 2 weeks ago, I had a feeling Leicester would stay up. I just thought they would pull it out, and it's not looking terrific for them now. Maybe it's just that Everton beating Brighton has like thrown things a bit. Like, I think it could be the bottom three today. I mean, I know Leeds play Spurs next weekend, and like Spurs are so mentally frail at the moment. I mean, we were talking about earlier, I think Harry Kane got a Player of the Season award. That's what he was doing there. The stadium was quarter empty, and you'll have a heaving Ellen Road next weekend, and you're thinking, are Spurs the team that's going to go and perform? So if you're the teams ahead of them, I'd give Forest half a chance against Arsenal today, actually. Just with Arsenal probably being in that sort of...
Even more, half a chance with the way Arsenal have been playing the last few weeks.
I sort of feel like this is a big game for Everton actually against Wolves. This actually probably is sort of a very important game for them today. I don't know. Maybe Everton could go down if they don't win this afternoon.
I think today is...
Leeds have West Ham this weekend. I mean, West Ham, after what they did during the week, what type of mental state are they going to be in?
Yeah.
How large were the celebrations? We saw the video of the changing room afterwards. Yeah. I'm not making any accusations here, but there was some beverages floating around. You'd wonder how long those celebrations actually went on, and mentally where they're going to be. So, it's an opportunity for Leeds, if they can start well at home as well, to really stick it on West Ham and see what they're made of. And, if the going gets tough early for them, they might just think, well, we haven't got the energy reserves today, we're already safe. So that could be a big 3 points. So I think Everton's game at Wolves today could be crucial. It's 0-0 at the moment, but I would fancy Leeds to pick up a win against West Ham also.
Yeah, you look at Leeds playing Spurs next weekend. I'm just reminding myself of the fixtures, to be honest. Like Everton at home to Bournemouth. Bournemouth had a good season, but again, they're probably they're going to be in that holiday mode, potentially that beach mode. And Forest, they're away to Crystal Palace. Now, actually, I know Palace are absolutely fine, but they've been actually very good in the second half of the season under Hodgson. And I don't know, Damien knows more about that club and personalities involved, but I'm not sure if they'll sort of phone in at home on the last day against Forest. They could be dangerous enough for Forest. So maybe Forest are looking at this Arsenal game today. Like, maybe it is Wolves Everton could be key in a way, because Leeds have half a chance of picking up 6 points with that run in.
Yeah, it's actually the top of the table has got pretty boring over the last couple of weeks with the way that Arsenal have imploded a little bit, but down the bottom it's very hard. I feel like week to week you ask people who they think the bottom three are going to be, and it changes because there has been those surprise results, like you said. Damien, you're talking there about West Ham and kind of coming off the high that they were on after their win in the Conference League during the week. But another one of the great matches of the week was one that none of us maybe expected, but that comeback in the playoff semi-finals. And I know you've been there before yourself in terms of playing in those sort of games. How do Sheffield Wednesday, I suppose, mentally prepare themselves over the next week or so to go into Wembley? And because, I mean, coming from 4-0 down, like 2 goals in extra time, the drama of the penalties, winning it, scoring all 5 of theirs, and then only 1 missed on the other side, like it's going to take at least a week, I would say, to come down from that sort of high.
I don't know. I'm not sure if you want to come down. If you ever wanted to put wind in your sails, that'll do it for you. I mean, the city will be absolutely buzzing. I know Sheffield United got promoted as well, but the Wednesday half of it will be absolutely buzzing. The players, I don't think, would have slept a wink after that game. But the feel-good factor, the level of durability that they had to just go into that game and believe that he would get something out of it and keep going, and then do what they did in extra time in levelling it again. And then penalties, man, you want to harness that, bottle it, I suppose, and keep that feeling as much as you possibly can. And be a brave man now to bet against Sheffield Wednesday in the final.
What's the dressing room like in this playoff vibe? Because I know you've talked about it before, right? The emotion you felt from Crystal Palace, you couldn't escape the cameras when when you went up, and the feeling of going through the playoffs. But I don't know what's it like in a dressing room, because someone said to me before, I can't think who it was, promotion's a weird thing because some players will know they might not necessarily play when a team goes up to the next level. Like, you're obviously very invested in getting up, but it's such a it's such a range of emotions the dressing room must feel at this time of the year, particularly down the leagues where maybe contract lengths are a little bit shorter and there's so much going on at this time of the year.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's an opportunity to be successful, and no matter what league you're in, if it's League 2, League 1 or Championship or even National League, when you look at what happened with the Notts County situation, I don't know if anyone was following that. I mean, that's looking into that was outrageous down at Plymouth, what went on with them. It was equally as exciting as the Sheffield Wednesday one. But the reason there's so much on it is because it's life-changing, you know, especially from the Championship to the Premier League, but even League 2 to League 1, you know, players will be getting a bump in money, they're playing at a different level. And I suppose because it's a 46-game season, you know, you thought, you know, in the Champions League it's a, you know, six-game group and stuff like that. You go through so many emotions because over a spell of games that length, you're going to have spells where you're in form, you're out of form, things are going for you, you deserved wins, deserved losses, whatever it might be. And then it all comes down to just one game at one stadium, 90 minutes, and there's no tomorrow. And if you win, you're moving up a level, and that's part of the success that I'm talking about. And if you lose, you're staring down the barrel of 46 more games. So there's so much at stake, and everybody's aware of it, because even especially in the Championship, say, right, you know, you get into the playoff final, and if you win, you know, you're a Premier League player, and it doesn't matter, you know, as long as you have a contract, you're going to go back as a Premier League player that pre-season. And, you know, to have that on your CV is incredible, because anybody that's even played in the Championship understands what a difficult mental torture it is to play in that league, because there's so many games. But then your whole life changes in 90 minutes or 120 minutes, whatever, you know, if it goes to extra time or penalties, even worse. But your whole life changes. And on the flip side, if you lose it, man, you're coming back pre-season in early July and you're staring down the barrel of that again. It's very, very difficult. So it's great, and that's why it produces these types of games, because there's so much at stake and the pressure is so much that these wild things seem to happen.
You can almost hear the joy in your voice as you're reminiscing on the great glory days that you had there.
I would never want to go back and do it again. And I promise that. Never. If someone put me in that situation now, I would just be like, no, thank you. That pressure is just way too much. But I suppose at the end of the season, you're just in that mentally in a place where you're like, you know, you're durable, you're switched on, you're resilient, you know. But when you think of what's at stake, and even only recently there, our 10-year anniversary from when we got promoted in 2013 was this week. And I remember talking to my mum, you know, and she was at Wembley that day, and you forget what it's like for family members sitting in a box during Club Wembley watching it. And my mum telling me that she didn't watch the second half. She was in a hallway pacing up and down because she just couldn't bear to watch it, because, you know, your family are equally as invested in it as what you are, because they want you to be successful. They have no control over it. But being at a stadium like Wembley, knowing that your hopes and dreams are 90 minutes away, everything you ever wanted, everything you ever looked for, a promotion is something that nobody can ever take away from you, because everyone knows how difficult it is. So, you know, your family members, my sisters tell me the stories of them as well, just staring at the floor, and just anytime a ball went in either box, they were just eating their fingernails. And so, you know, it's incredible to look back on now and laugh, but geez, I wouldn't want to go through it again.
I interviewed John Egan's mum, and she talks about pretending to be Portuguese to sneak into Ireland versus Portugal because the away fans weren't allowed into the back game.
I remember them celebrating the goal. Yeah. The John Egan scored in Faro and went over to celebrate with some Irish fans, which is unusual because there wasn't meant to be any there.
Yeah, they just suddenly turned up with their knockoff Portuguese jersey. Just a quick update on the Premier League. So Aston Villa have just missed a penalty to go 1-0 up. Watkins missing there. Across all the other fixtures, they've remain the same, about 25 minutes gone there. Manchester United, the only one who has scored so far. Nearly out of time, but big games in the WSL tomorrow with Manchester Derby and London Derbies to decide the Champions League places. And of course, the under-17s are playing Wales in a very important game for their European hopes at 3:30. Dan and Damien, thank you very much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure. Football on Off the Ball is brought to you by Sky, proud partner and supporter of the Republic of Ireland Women's National Football Team. Thanks for listening.
Football on Off the Ball
with Sky. Watch West Ham versus Leeds on Super Sunday, live only on Sky Sports.
This is News Talk. The Hard Shoulder with Kieran Cuddihy.
The schoolyard is still a cold place if you are gay.